Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 5, The Beginning of the War. At night, we felt that our car was being tossed from side to side. We were rolling one on top of the other. Our train was moving at an incredible speed, not even slowing down at the crossings and not stopping at the small stations. On the morning of June 23rd, we arrived at a station called Veliki Yaluki. We stopped rather far away on some side tracks. Echelons of soldiers, cannons, and heavy guns were moving west past us. The window panes of houses were covered with strips of old newspapers. What is this? Are these some sort of maneuvers that the army is moving and the windows are covered as if against a bombardment? Was the question asked by all, but to which no one had an answer. It was incredibly stuffy in the car. To this was added the odor of unwashed bodies and feet, not to mention the smell of the toilet. And to use this toilet was torture. Quite another story in comparison to the toilet in a prison cell, where there are only 2 men or only 2 women. But here, men, women, children. From dry food and the bashfulness to use this toilet, many people became constipated. I developed an inflammation of the bladder. I suffered from acute pain. But how could I, in the sight of everyone, sit on the toilet? I began to search among our things for some sort of drapery for our toilet. And how grateful I was to those young soldiers who, having taken such risks, driving us from our home, put in some bedspreads and sheets, which I would not have taken because of the weight. It was only permitted to take 50 kilos. Another young woman, Yakienia, suggested that we enclose our toilet with sheets. I gave them to her, but how to attach them? We all pulled our safety pins. The men somehow attached our drapery to the ceiling. We were all very pleased, but not for long. An 18-year-old Jewish boy, Gerbergas, was the first to go into the toilet. He wrapped himself clumsily into the sheet, ripped it off, and even soiled it. Everyone was appalled that, being already so big, he did not know how to behave. And the poor boy, helped by his brother and father, was wiping the sheet with whatever he could and tried to reattach the curtain. Being without water was the most difficult. We would stop seldom, and we had a limited number of receptacles. There was only enough water to drink very little at a time. There was not even a question of washing ourselves. We could only dream of dashing to the water and washing away the constant and abundant sweat. And the heat was scorching. In the car, we were thirsting to the most extreme limit. It was easier when the train was moving. Once stopped, we were baking as if we were in an oven. As we went deeper into the direction of the Urals, our echelon would be diverted onto the auxiliary tracks because it was necessary to allow the westward-bound army echelons to pass. Finally, we stopped at Katelnitsa, across from the stationed echelon of soldiers, since the more distant tracks were occupied by other echelons similar to ours, with the same type of deportees as we were. By the way, in Katelnitsa, for the first time since our deportation, we were given some soup. That was the first distribution of food, the 10th day after our arrest. The door of the soldiers' car was opened more widely. The soldiers looked at us with curiosity. They were smoking self-made rolled cigarettes and were reading a newspaper. Taking advantage of the opportunity that the guards had marched off a little, summoning my courage, I shouted, "Guys, give me the paper." Immediately, one of the young men jumped out of the car and, running up to the sill in the door, shoved in the paper. Gerbergas grabbed it. Glancing at it, he shouted, "Oh, war!" "Give it to me, I'll read it," I said aloud, using my right as the leader and since I had asked for the paper. It was good that I didn't have time to take it. On the spot, a furious guard jumped up, opened the door more widely, and shouted angrily, "Someone gave you a paper. Give it here." Disconcerted, I would certainly have given it up, but Gerbergas quickly slipped it under his clothes and most quietly and politely said, "No, you're wrong, perhaps to the other car. Look for it there. Don't talk so much and don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. I'll take care of you yet. shouted the Chekist. At this point, we all shouted in a chorus that no one had given a paper to our car. Then the Chekist ran up to the soldiers, demanding to know into which car they had given the newspaper. The soldiers going to the front were brave. The Chekist was not their superior. There is nothing, and they started insulting our Chekist. What words weren't thrown in his face? Oh, you creep, you snake, you son of a bitch, you people oppressor. You won't even give them a paper. A newspaper isn't a letter. It's published so that everyone can read it, and so on. The Chekist skulked away, having achieved nothing. And we learned that the Germans had occupied Kaunas. Cholet and the avant-garde of the Soviet army was rolling eastward. The war boded us no good, but we were glad anyway that the Russians were being driven out of Lithuania. The mood was jubilant. We hoped we would be returned to Lithuania. That was only a sweet dream, but in reality, the echelon was continually gliding further east.